Good afternoon on this fine, low humidity,
It is, a little bit.
bootiest day.
Yeah. It's really nice.
So you had a little excitement last night.
It's very nice right now. It's a calm after the storm because we had a hurricane barrel up the eastern seaboard of America, but actually a little bit inland. So it missed us in Deerfield, mostly eastern part of New Hampshire. We did not get that hurricane. But as it roared by last night, we got one little slap of on the last little northeast corner as it came by, and then we got this wind coming up from the south, and it was like a microburst. It had to be 50-mile-an-hour winds. Trees were whipping, and there was a couple of them. And I was inside, and I heard the crack, and it sounded like a shotgun, and you know it's a tree. And then I heard the heavy thud, where you know it's a big, that's a lot of mass. So it was a big pine tree, and it was right behind this farm building, and it was within range of cutting this building in half. But it went in the total opposite direction. The wind, I was telling Carol, we were fortunate that the wind blew it. It came from the south, blew it away from the house, but she had reassured me there was actually the angel that pushed it that way against the house. So who's to say?
I'm all for angels if they're
Sure.
on my side.
Yeah, yeah, they better be.
Cue Angel from Montgomery.
Make me an angel that flies from Montgomery.
This did you measure trees by the diameter at breast height? And this one's got to be at least probably 26 inches minimally, maybe 28. That's a big tree. And this tree from the back of the farm building where we pick up our vegetables each week is maybe 30 feet away. This tree was a 70-footer easy. Unbelievable, Wes. And this tree just cracked right in half, and it went that way. It went the direction directly away from the building because that's the direction the wind was coming in from the south, and it blew the tree down to the north. It's a big, heavy log.
What I think is very interesting is if you could see right here where that tree was sheared off by the wind.
Yeah.
And you could see the size of it by looking here and look at the canopy left, the
Right.
space left by that tree. But what we were also commenting on is how this micro burst is, and perhaps how strong these coverings for the lettuce is. But within, what would you say, that's 100 feet?
Maybe 150 feet away.
Okay, so I'll grant you. So 150 feet away from wind that sheared this huge tree off, we have this covering here that remains.
Well, I'll tell you what my conclusion is, that this was better able to resist the wind than that was. This is the structure of this thing with the bows and the wind ability to go through it, and the ability of those things to flex. As that unit flexed with the wind, it moved around and went with it. Whereas that tree was unable to flex, and at that weak point, it just took enough pressure, and that was weaker. The tree was weaker than that was.
Well, I still think it's pretty cool that
I think it's pretty
this
cool
is
it went that way.
standing, and yeah, I know you do. I know you do.
Man, that would have been a
Okay.
different day if it had not fallen in this direction. Good thing that angel was there. Okay, let's take a quick look here in field 1, what's going on. This is a very productive field. Most of our greens come out of this field. And we've got all our lettuce, 5 weeks, I think 6 weeks of lettuce we had consecutive before it shut down from the heat. We were growing it underneath this cover. These are some little plugs that we threw in here 2 weeks ago, and they were probably 2-week-old plugs. So they're probably 4-week-old plants, but they've been growing through a heat wave. We've had maybe 5-9 degree days while we're trying to get lettuce started. It's not an easy thing to do, but we've kept it moist, and this cover's helped. And we've got some nice little lettuce plants here. Now eventually, it's August 5 or something, the heat will start to come down, and as we progress through August into September, these plants are going to get big and lush, and this is going to be some really nice lettuce salad greens in September again. So we'll put the lettuce back on. So that'll get turned back on again.
And I'm curious about these, which we saw when you had just planted them.
Yeah.
And you were concerned about these being outside. And they do look a little paler. They look greener initially. I guess those look bigger and healthier, huh?
I think they do look a little bit bigger. And part of the reason is the variety selection. This is not just any, it's not like a butter crunch. This is not one of these spring lettuces. This is a summer variety, if there is such a thing, of lettuce. But Johnny's at Johnny's Seed Company up in Albion, Maine, has a line of lettuce that he calls his Summer Crisp line. And that's what is in his bed now. I have 4 different varieties, different colors, different shapes. But they have been bred to do better in the heat and be less prone to bolt. Variety selection was always very important. And that's what I'm doing right here. You could do this at home. Johnny's Summer Crisp varieties. And then just pick different ones and give different ones a try. Okay, here's a quick onion thing. It's onion season. It's August. We start to get onions again if you got them in on time. We did some further fertilization early in the season, and it seems to have worked. We got a lot of good-sized onions. These are the big Walla Walla type down here in this end of the bed, and they've sized up relatively well. Some of them full size, which is always nice. How do you know when to harvest your onions? Is you wait for the top to collapse and fall over, and the plant will tell you that that's been done. There's a confounding factor right here with these plants because we had the burst come through here last night, 60-mile-an-hour winds, which knocked a lot of these plants over.
Which give you the indications, a false indication perhaps.
Yeah, that the plant probably, because I went through here yesterday and removed every onion that had flagged, we call them. I removed them all. I said, well, I'm going to let them go as long as they want to. Let the onion tell me when it flags. But the storm had another idea and really knocked a lot of them over. But then also, it seems to have finished them off too, because once you see this, once you see the top like of the onion do that, the vascular tissue is not really working properly. What's being made in the onion here, the photosynthate, the sugars that are being moved down into this tuber, this bulb, to store the carbohydrate, it's not working anymore. When this goes over, you kind of broke the tubes, you know, the xylem and the phloem that goes through there. So once you see that, it's time to take them out. You're not really getting any extra growth out of them. We bring them in now, and I put them on a table with some paper where they can dry well and keep them off of each other so that we can dry them down. They further develop their flavor as the tops die back, and they also harden up a little bit, and the shell hardens a little bit so the onion actually would store a little better also. So you kind of keep them till those tops really shrivel up and fall off. This is our first of our squashes to come in. It's a variety called Slick Pick. It's a UNH variety. It was developed by Dr. Brent Lloyd at UNH. It's a really nice top-of-the-line squash in terms of tenderness. It's so tender, and it's very tasty. It's very sweet. The plants are usually very vigorous, healthy plants. But there's one special thing about this plant, and the reason it's called Slick Pick. I'm going to show you what that is. It's about the harvesting. Slick Pick means it's a very easy way to harvest them, and when you harvest the squash, when you come in here and take your squash, you end up with a very smooth squash without any scratches on it, because on the leaf petiole of this squash plant, there are no spines. There are no spines. Anyone who's ever gardened knows that there were spines on the leaf petiole. But this one, Brent found the gene, the recessive gene, for no spines on the leaf. And the advantage of that is during the harvest. When you're reaching in, harvesting tons of these and bringing them out, especially for commercial growers, you inevitably are scratching the heck out of these. And there's scratches up and down them. You see it in the store. You see it in the ones you buy. And those get brown. That's where the rot begins. The decomposition begins on the scratches. This is a nice, smooth, slick pick. Slick variety. Right there. See, there's no scratches on it. So it'll last longer. Looking at my particular plants here right now, let's look at a couple more things. Sometimes you look in your squash plant and you see something like this. Let me cut these off. No need these being in here. Sometimes you see that. There's some rot. They didn't get pollinated well. I'm predicting these flowers opened during that heavy downpour. So these flowers, back when they were flowers, during that rainy spell, these did not become pollinated. The other thing we do on our squash plants is we continuously prune them. When we see these bad leaves, these dying senescent leaves, we take them off. This is where the insects will live. this is where the disease will begin. So when you're doing your harvest, at the same time, take off the crapola leaves at the same time. This is where the insects are. That's where the disease is beginning. So continuously prune when you come down through your plant. This is about the size. You know, when you get asked what size to cut them, it really depends on varieties. If it's a nice, tasty variety, you can let them get a little bit bigger. Oftentimes we think of that as the ideal size because they're small and tender. But when you get a really good variety, you can let them go a little bigger. And it's still just as good. So you can let your slick picks get at least that big, your good varieties. Or bigger, because they stay so tender. Look at this, Wes. See this? The end of that leaf is gone. Look at all the little leaflets that are gone off of this. Right? All because this is what a leaf looks like. We focus. This is a normal tomato leaf. This one from here to here, that's a leaf. And these are leaflets. Look at this one. Oh, wait a minute. Leaflets. I don't see any leaflets. I don't see any there. The end of that one is gone. This chewed so badly, it just fell right out of the trellis. It had nothing to hold it underneath the trellis anymore. And it just dove out. And this is like some really bad damage in here. And this happened really quickly. They got thick and fast. But actually, they've been in here for a while because I found this. The hornworm did that. So he's been in here for a while under my radar. And he was really chowing down. This is what you look for. See these little black dots? That's their droppings. So you look for signs of the insect, and as I can see these black droppings, I'm seeing them not necessarily everywhere, but pretty close to everywhere. So that means that the moth, this doesn't happen every year, but she got clever and came in through the side. And she got in there and she laid her eggs. This is a moth, the tomato hornworm. And they don't, the weird thing is they don't even overwinter in New Hampshire. In the winter, all those little tomato hornworms are all going to die. They pupate and they try to overwinter in the soil, but it's too cold. So each year, the new tomato hornworms have to fly back up from the south. So all of these, like the offspring of one that flew up each season long. But when they do get here, and when they get in the tunnel, they can obviously be just as destructive in here as they could be outside. So they will have to be controlled chemically. Or otherwise, as you can see, we will have no tomatoes. So these will not be no-spray tomatoes. But the spray you can use a very successful, very low toxicity spray, fortunately, to stop this pest. The tomato hornworm is a caterpillar. As such, it is prone, just like all organisms, to certain diseases from bacteria. Bacteria infect every organism, every animal on the planet, plants and animals alike. And Bacillus thuringiensis, BT, is a bacteria that if caterpillars eat it, they will die. What we're going to do is we're going to add the Bacillus thuringiensis to these leaves. It's not going to harm a bumblebee who comes in for a flower. It's not going to harm somebody who ate a tomato that has some on it. Although you wash it anyway, you can wash it, but it's harmless to us, the Bacillus thuringiensis. For the hornworm, the BT works, it's destructive to them, not to us, and not to the beneficial insects. This insect can be do massive destruction, but on your home gardens as well. And by the way, it's still an organic tomato. The organic farmers, it is certified by the organic boards. All the organic boards certify use of that, of BT. So it's still a top quality tomato, an organic quality tomato at that point.
You mentioned out there that you were going to plant some legumes and you were going to inoculate them.
Yes.
And why don't you tell me what that's
This is
about?
not like inoculating them against a disease. It's not going to be just the same word, but what we're doing with inoculating them is we're going to be adding to them a microbe, which is kind of like an inoculation. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to add to the legume seed, in this case it's peas, and I've already done it, there's a powder on it. Can you see there's black powder in there? It's got black dust. See? It's a microbe. It's a microbe, and I wet these peas a little bit first, and then I add it so it sticks to it. They get dirty. It looks like they're dirty, but in reality now the pea is going to have full access to that microbe. When I put it in the ground, the pea will suck up water, and it begins to germinate. The little root that comes out, the radicle, or the embryonic root, emerges, and it's right there. The microbe is there, and the microbe takes up residence in the root. The plant invites it in. It's symbiosis. It's not an infection. It's a symbiotic relationship. Yes, it is. It's a symbiotic relationship. So the plant will provide a home for the microbe. It'll actually build a little home for them. It builds these little nodules. So when you plant, I should have one. You pull it out of the ground. you see little nodules on the roots, which you don't see in other plants. And those are little homes that were built by the plant for the microbe to live in. So in symbiosis, both organisms benefit. The microbe obviously gets a nice home to live in and to reproduce in, protected from the environment in a little plant casing. It's warm and moist inside the roots. It stays wet. The plant, because this microbe has the ability though to turn a form of nitrogen that's common in the soil, which is unusable to plants, into a usable form of nitrogen.
It fixes it.
It's called fixation. It fixes the nitrogen on nitrogen, and the nitrogen is now available to the plant, so the plant gets more nitrogen. A legume can pull nitrogen out of the soil where another plant cannot grow. And then as the plant decomposes, you end up with more nutrients, and especially if you plow in a nitrogen crop as a cover crop, as a green crop, you can add nitrogen to a soil. You plant a nitrogen crop, let it fix nitrogen, plow it in, now you have nitrogen for your next crop. Anytime you plant a pea or a bean, you always are wise to use the inoculum. You just wet them just a little bit so that when you put the powder on, you shake it up in the yogurt container, they'll be dirty. And then just let them dry if you have some extra ones, and they won't be harmed if there's extra ones. Just let them dry before you put them back in the package.
Cool.
Yeah.
You were talking about planting one crop right after another. It's incredible how efficient you make use of the land by doing that.
Right. You're right. You're talking about the sequential planting phase we're in now in the beginning of August, where we're doing really like our final plantings now. We can do another, so next accelerated, concentrated time to do some planting is the very beginning of August. And all things, if things go well, the season goes well, you can be harvesting this stuff in September and into October and through the middle of October. Certain crops, peas, beans, spinach. The spinach crop got brutalized early in the season, but you have another shot at it. So we'll try spinach again for the fall of the pak choi, so we can keep the brassicas going also. So we'll do some replanting, and now another thing going on right now this time of year, home gardeners know, is the weeds are making another assault. So so we did a lot of weeding today, and my workers are excellent. So we cleaned out the turnip bed, they cleaned out a couple other important beds. The beets look nice and clean, and so we're in very good shape here. And we're going to be coming right into the central part of the harvest season now, so we're going to do a lot of really good stuff coming. So we're very excited. Yeah, we're excited.
I'll see you Friday.
Yeah, okay.
I got a new book. I'm going to go home and do some reading.
Good.
See you next time.
All right, take care.